Hey everyone, so I'm going to recap on what's going on with the election cycle between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. At the start of the election cycle, everybody said that Bernie Sanders was going to get the Democratic nomination for president, and he was off to a really good start. He was dominating coming out of the gates in the delegate count in different states that were holding primaries, and then all of a sudden there was a shift in South Carolina for Joe Biden. And after Joe Biden won South Carolina, Joe Biden has since then dominated the delegate count and the primary field in the last 3-4 weeks. A little over a month now, he has dominated every primary. And he has lost very little states right now, but the bigger states that come with the most delegate counts, Joe Biden has dominated those states in the primaries. And so last night was completely crucial for the Democratic nomination for president, and here's why. 4 years ago, when Bernie Sanders ran for president, he won the state of Michigan over Hillary Clinton, but he still lost the Democratic nomination. Everybody said months ago that Bernie Sanders would win Michigan, would win Florida, would win the biggest states that have the most delegates. But Bernie Sanders has failed to win the states that he said that he was going to win. The only big state that he has won so far is California. The next set of states that are having primaries are all states that Joe Biden has always won. You have New York and a couple other states that are about to hold primaries next week that are all Joe Biden states. And so last night, what was so remarkable about the Michigan primary was that when everybody said that Bernie Sanders would win Michigan, Bernie Sanders lost Michigan in the biggest margin that he had ever lost a state. And that had the biggest delegate count for those primaries, and there were 6 of them that were hotly contested, and of the 6, Joe Biden won 4 of them, with North Dakota and Washington still up for grabs because they're too close to call. And so right now, I was just watching Bernie Sanders' speech about last night, and some of the things that he has been saying. He thinks that the American people want a better middle class. The American people want free tuition in college. The American people, they want free health care. They want free everything. He thinks that the American people are ready to embrace him as the Democratic nominee. And he says that the heart of the nation is in a battle for who can beat Donald Trump. And he keeps on saying that his voters, he's winning in the voter count. And that's not true. It's just not true. People are going to the polls. Millennials, people who are 50 and above, the black community are all voting Joe Biden. When Elizabeth Warren bowed out of the presidential race, that gave Joe Biden the bump that he needed to win the states that Elizabeth Warren would have won if she had more delegates. And so right now, Bernie Sanders thinks that he's the best person to beat Donald Trump in November. And that's just simply not true, because there's too much that he has clearly come out and said in supporting Fidel Castro and Soviet Russia and different communistic countries like China. He has praised these communistic countries. And so America is not about to embrace Bernie Sanders as a Democratic nominee. It's not going to happen. I think that America is ready for the next step in the presidential race. I think it's ready to take the next step into the future. But I don't think that America is fully ready to go into a socialistic president in office to be running the country. I really don't think that the heart of America is ready for that. They're just not. And the voters are going to the polls and continually showing Bernie Sanders they're not ready to embrace a socialistic, communistic president. So right now, Joe Biden stands at 876 delegates, and Bernie Sanders sits at 653 delegates. Bernie Sanders and his hopes for winning the Democratic nomination are fading fast. And he has lost all the states that he should have won to be able to win the Democratic nomination. And Joe Biden right now is dominating all the states that are bringing the most delegate counts. And so in the electoral map, all of the states that would be needed to win the Democratic nomination are all going to Joe Biden. And so I believe that Bernie Sanders is really out of touch with what America is going to the polls and voting for. They don't want free health care. They don't want free tuition in college. They do want a president to tackle health care reform. They want a president to tackle the prison system reform. They want a president to do all of these things, but they are not ready to have a communistic president for the Democratic nominee in office. They're just not. And so as the primaries go on, the next set of states are not Bernie Sanders friendly. And so Bernie Sanders is ignorantly trying to believe that he still has a shot and that the American people want him in office. And the American people have gone to the polls and they are saying a clear, we don't want you in office. We want Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders is getting blown away by millennials. Bernie Sanders is getting blown away by voters who are 50 and above. And Bernie Sanders is getting blown away by the black community. Those three classes right there are going to the polls and they're voting Joe Biden. There is a debate Sunday night coming up between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders, this is his last shot at trying to get the American people to rally behind him as the Democratic nominee. And what's going to happen is he's going to seem further weak because of where his delegate count is. And the people do not feel that he right now is the best nominee to beat Donald Trump in November. The Democratic establishment is rallying around Joe Biden, and the fact that he has almost 200 more delegates than Bernie Sanders should tell the American people and should tell Bernie Sanders that they are not ready for a communistic, socialistic president in office. Bernie Sanders needs to go away. He needs to drop out of the race. He has no hope of winning, and he needs to get his head on straight. He's not thinking right, and he is trying to make a case where there is no case for him to be the presidential nominee on the Democratic side. So I just wanted to update you guys on that, just so you guys can be watching and so you guys can understand what is happening in the Democratic field right now. And so this is really the heart of the nation that is in the balance of, are we ready for a communistic president on the Democratic side? Because if it came down to Bernie Sanders and it comes down to Donald Trump, that is a clear win for Donald Trump, because we are not ready, this nation is not ready for a socialistic, communistic president. We're just not. So stay with me and stay on the page. We are the voice for more updates on what's going on in the electoral field, and hope you guys have a great day. Thanks.